My name is Charity Frost, and I just turned 16. On my birthday, the man I had called Dad for the last 12 years threw a $10 bill at my face and said, "Get out. I'm done paying for another man's trash." He thought those words would destroy me. He thought that crumpled $10 bill and the slammed door would be the end of me. He had no idea it was only the beginning. I picked up the bill, looked him straight in the eye, smiled, and handed him the sealed envelope I'd been keeping for 2 years. I know everything I said. He tore it open. His face went white when he saw what was inside. Then he looked out the window and froze. Outside, through the thick Spokane snow, a black Range Rover was parked at the curb. The driver's door opened. A tall man in a dark coat stepped out and started walking toward our house. Before I tell you who he was, and why that man's appearance made my so-called father look like he'd seen a ghost, if you're watching this right now, drop a comment and let me know where you are and what time it is there. I swear I read every single one. And if what I'm about to tell you actually happened to you too, type same down below. Because what happened next in that living room changed everything. Now let me take you back to how it all started. I still remember every detail of the day the snow buried Interstate 90, the year I turned 4. The phone call came while I was coloring at the kitchen table. Vicky answered, then dropped the receiver. She didn't cry right away. She just stared at the wall until Lester walked in from the garage. He took one look at her face and knew. My parents were gone. Black ice, a semi-truck instant. The funeral was small. I wore a navy coat 2 sizes too big and held Lester's hand the whole time because everyone told me he was family now. He and Vicky stood at the front with me between them, the perfect picture of the grieving brother and sister-in-law stepping up. People kept saying how lucky I was to have them. They moved me into their house on South Hill that same week. For the first few years, everything looked normal. Christmas cards with all 4 of us smiling. Lester teaching me to ride a bike in the driveway. Vicky braiding my hair before first grade pictures. I called them Mom and Dad because that's what they told me to do, and no one ever corrected it. Then Knox came along when I was 6. Suddenly, there were new toys that were only for the baby new clothes, that were only for the baby new everything. My old stuffed bear disappeared. My bedroom became the nursery. I got moved to the smaller room at the back of the house that smelled like mothballs. By 8, the differences were impossible to miss. Knox got the shiny red bicycle for Christmas. I got a sweater 2 sizes too big from the clearance rack. When I asked why, Lester just said, "You're older. You don't need as much." Vicky smiled that tight smile and changed the subject. My 9th birthday passed without a single mention. No cake, no candles, no happy birthday song. I sat on my bed until midnight waiting for someone to remember. Nobody did. I cried so hard I threw up in the bathroom and cleaned it myself so they wouldn't get mad. The real wake-up call came the winter I turned 10. I'd gone downstairs for water and heard voices in the kitchen. The light was off, but the hallway glowed from the crack under the door. I pressed my ear against the wood. Lester's voice was low, almost a growl. "The trust from my brother is sitting at $1.2 million, plus the life insurance payout brings it to 1.6. As long as we keep her until she's 18, we control every penny. The state pays us extra because we're listed as the parents. Nobody's checking." Vicky laughed softly. "And when she's 18, then we're done. She gets whatever's left, if anything's left. Until then, we just keep playing the perfect family." I stood frozen. My glass slipped from my hand and shattered on the hardwood. The kitchen light flicked on. Lester's face appeared in the doorway, eyes narrowed. "Go back to bed, Charity." That was the first time he ever used my name like a threat. From that night on, I understood exactly what I was to them, a paycheck in human form. Every forced smile for the neighbors, every family photo, every good girl was just part of the act. I stopped asking for things. I stopped expecting birthdays. I started watching, listening, and waiting for the day I could prove who they really were. Those words from the kitchen haunted me for the next 4 years. I stopped sleeping through the night. Every creak in the hallway made me sit up, terrified they were coming to check if I was still useful. I started searching for anything that might explain why my own family treated me like an investment. I went through every drawer, every box in the attic, every forgotten corner of the garage. Nothing. Until the week I turned 14. I was cleaning out the spare closet, something Vicky always made me do before the holidays, when my hand brushed against cold metal at the very back. A small gray lockbox, the kind with a cheap padlock. A strip of masking tape across the lid had my mom's handwriting in faded blue ink. Open only when you're 14. I love you forever, Mom. I carried it to my room, heart hammering so loud I was sure someone would hear. I used a paperclip and a YouTube tutorial to pick the lock in under 2 minutes. Inside was a single envelope, thick cream paper sealed with red wax. I broke the seal. The letter was 3 pages, dated 2 months before the crash. My sweetest Charity. If you're reading this, I'm no longer there to protect you. Before I married your dad, I was in a brief relationship with a man named Reed Lawson. We were young. It ended when he got engaged to someone else, and I thought that chapter was closed. 3 months later, I discovered I was pregnant with you. I never told Reed. I married your dad because I loved him and I wanted you to have a family. But I've seen how Lester looks at money. I've seen the way he talks about the trust and the insurance payout. I'm afraid after I'm gone, he'll try to control everything that's meant for you. The trust is $1,200,000 from your grandparents plus $400,000 in life insurance. It's in your name only. Lester is only the trustee until you're 18. I've hired an attorney, Holly Beck, in downtown Spokane to watch over it. Her card is taped inside this lid. There's also a strand of my hair and a copy of your original birth certificate, father listed as unknown. If you ever need proof of who your real father is, use it. You are not a burden. You are my miracle. All my love, Mom. I read it 4 times before the words stopped swimming. Reed Lawson. The name meant nothing and everything at once. I found Holly Beck's business card exactly where Mom said it would be. I emailed her from the library computer the next day using a fake name at first. She responded in 20 minutes. If you're Jennifer's daughter, call me immediately. I called from a payphone outside the grocery store so they couldn't trace it. Holly's voice was calm, kind, but serious. She already knew about the trust discrepancies. She'd been waiting for me to reach out. She mailed me a discreet DNA kit, no return address. I waited until Lester left his hairbrush on the bathroom counter after his shower, snatched 3 strands with roots still attached, sealed them, and mailed the kit from a Dropbox across town. 17 days later, the results arrived at a P.O. box Holly set up for me. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. Reed Lawson was my father. I sat on the floor of the public library bathroom and cried so hard I almost threw up. Then I wiped my face, walked out, and went to the only person I trusted with something this big. Snowheart has been my best friend since 6th grade, the only one who never bought the perfect family act. I showed her the letter, the DNA report, everything. She read in silence, then pulled me into the tightest hug I'd ever felt. We didn't sleep that night. We just sat on her bedroom floor, whispering plans, promises, and every swear word we knew about Lester and Vicky. For the first time in 10 years, I wasn't alone. The next 2 years became a countdown only I could see. Reed emailed me the same night Holly forwarded him my test results. His first message was only 4 words I should have known. We started slow, 1 message a week. Then, every few days. He never pushed. He never asked for photos or phone calls until I was ready. When I finally sent him a picture of me holding the lockbox, he replied with a single voice note. His voice cracked on my name. He wanted to fly to Spokane the next day. I begged him to wait. In Washington, 16 is the magic number. At 16, I could petition the court myself to change guardians if I proved the current one was harming my interests. Holly had already drafted everything. We just needed the perfect moment to serve it. So we planned. Quietly. Carefully. I kept living the lie at home, smiled at the right times, helped with Knox's homework, said yes, Dad, when Lester spoke to me. Inside, I was counting 722 days, 721, 720. The morning I turned 16 arrived gray and silent. No balloons on the mailbox, no pancakes with candles. Knox was already at school. Vicky was at her yoga class. Lester sat at the kitchen island in his bank suit, scrolling his phone. I walked in wearing the same jeans and hoodie I'd slept in. He didn't look up at first. Then he reached into his wallet, pulled out a crisp $10 bill and flicked it across the granite so it landed at my feet. "Get out," he said, voice flat. "I'm done paying for another man's trash." The words hit exactly like he wanted. But I had waited 2 years for them. I bent down, picked up the bill, folded it once, and slipped it into my pocket. Then I smiled, the first real smile in that house in a decade, and pulled the thick manila envelope from my backpack. "I know," I told him. He snorted. Know what exactly I placed the envelope in front of him, inside the temporary order signed by a Spokane County judge the day before, effective immediately. The certified DNA report, the petition citing 12 years of fiduciary breach. His fingers shook as he tore it open. Page after page. His own forged signatures stared back at him. That's when the doorbell rang. Vicky was still gone. Knox at school. Lester froze with the papers half out of the envelope. I walked past him, opened the front door myself. Reed Lawson stood on the porch in a charcoal coat, snowflakes melting on his shoulders. Holly Beck stood one step behind, briefcase in hand. Reed's eyes, my eyes, locked on mine for the first time in person. He didn't smile. He didn't have to. He stepped inside, boots leaving wet prints on the hardwood, and spoke the sentence I had dreamed of hearing for 730 days. "I'm here for my daughter," he said, voice calm, final. "You don't have any legal claim on her anymore." Lester opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The air in the living room went dead the instant Reed shut the front door behind him. No one moved. No one breathed loud enough to hear. Even the grandfather clock in the hallway seemed to freeze between ticks. Lester stood clutching the temporary guardianship order like it was written in a foreign language. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out except a small animal sound. Holly clicked open her briefcase with the calm of someone who had done this 100 times. She laid the first folder on the coffee table, dark green leather, gold-embossed seal of Spokane County Superior Court, and slid it toward the center so every page faced Lester. "Temporary order effective at 9:30 this morning," she said. "Signed by Judge Harlan. Charity is no longer your ward. Try to stop her from leaving and you'll be in handcuffs before lunch." Lester's eyes finally focused. He flipped to the last page, saw the signature, and the paper slipped from his fingers like it burned him. Reed never raised his voice. He simply reached into the second folder and began placing documents on the table one by one, slow enough for the sound of thick paper hitting glass to echo in the silence. A bank withdrawal slip, $8,000, memo line, Knox private school deposit. Knox had been in public school his entire life. A wire transfer confirmation, $12,000 to Coeur d'Alene Chevrolet for a white Tahoe registered to Victoria Frost. The same month, I was told braces were too expensive. A resort reservation in Los Cabos, $43,000. 4 adults, 2 children, Christmas week. I spent that Christmas eating cereal alone while they sent postcards of turquoise water. He kept going. A boat loan in Lester's name. Hockey equipment and travel team fees that totaled more in one season than I had been given in 4 years. A casino cash advance slip from the Bellagio signed with the trust's debit card. Every sheet landed with the soft finality of a gavel. $212,000. 12 years. Every dollar taken while I wore hand-me-down coats and asked for nothing. Vicky had slipped in through the garage entrance sometime during the presentation. She stood just inside the archway in her lavender yoga outfit, stainless steel water bottle trembling so hard the ice inside rattled. I never signed anything," she stammered, voice cracking on every word. Reed finally looked at her. "Your signature is on 14 of these withdrawals, Mrs. Frost. Page 27 if you'd like to refresh your memory." Her knees buckled. She caught the doorframe to stay upright. From the stairs came the creak of weight on old wood. Knox appeared in his Gonzaga Bulldog's pajama pants, hair sticking up, eyes wide. He took in the stack of papers, his father's ghost-white face, his mother half collapsed against the wall, and the stranger who looked like an older, richer version of me. He opened his mouth maybe to ask what was happening, but no sound came. He just stared at the evidence of every new gaming console, every ski trip, every pair of $300 sneakers he'd ever owned. Holly closed the briefcase with a sharp snap. "The Spokane County Sheriff's Civil Division is on standby," she said. "We'd prefer this stay peaceful." Lester found his voice at last raw and ragged. "You can't prove any of this." "I'll fight it. I'll drag this through every court. You'll lose," Reed cut in quiet, certain. "And when you do, the DA gets the forgery file. 18 counts minimum. We're offering you the chance to keep this civil. Take it." He turned to me, held out his hand. I took it. His palm was warm, calloused in places I didn't expect, steady in a way nothing in my life had ever been. I grabbed the duffel I'd hidden behind the couch the night before, 3 hoodies, 2 pairs of jeans, my mom's lockbox wrapped in a t-shirt, and walked toward the door. Behind me, Lester started shouting threats. Lawyers, lawsuits, ruin. The words chased us down the hallway but lost power with every step. Reed opened the back door of the waiting Range Rover. I climbed in. Holly took the front. The driver eased away from the curb without waiting for instructions. Snow poured from the sky in thick, relentless sheets. I watched the only home I'd ever known disappear behind a curtain of white. For the first time in 12 years, I didn't feel cold. Snow came down again over Spokane the night of the Spokane First Bank charity auction. The Davenport Grand Ballroom shimmered under crystal chandeliers. 300 guests in black tie milled around silent auction tables, signed Gonzaga basketball's weekend stays at the Coeur d'Alene Resort, a private dinner with the mayor. Every dollar went to the Children's Hospital, or so the banners claimed. Lester still held the title of branch president. The board hadn't moved against him yet. The lawsuit was still pending review. So there he sat at the head table in his rented tux, smiling for sponsors, shaking hands like nothing had changed. He had no idea the lead sponsor had changed. Reed had quietly pledged $300,000 the week the invitations went out. The bank president himself had called to thank him personally, never asking why a Seattle shipping billionaire cared about a Spokane fundraiser. I walked in on Reed's arm wearing a floor-length navy silk gown he'd had delivered the day before. Heads turned, phones lifted. Whispers followed us across the marble floor. We stopped at table after table so Reed could greet old acquaintances. Every introduction was the same. "This is my daughter Charity." Some recognized the last name Frost and did the math in their heads. Others just smiled politely. A few asked where I went to school. I answered with the truth for the first time in my life. "I'm finishing the semester online while I settle the guardianship transfer." The MC tapped the microphone. Dinner ended. The lights dimmed for the live auction segment. Reed was scheduled to give the sponsor thank you right before the big-ticket items. He squeezed my hand once, then walked up the 3 steps to the stage. The room quieted. Reed took the mic, scanned the crowd, and smiled the easy smile that closed 8-figure deals. "Good evening, Spokane. Tonight we've already raised an incredible amount for the Children's Hospital, and I'm proud to be part of it. But before we start bidding on that Lake Tahoe ski week, I have someone I'd like you to meet." He turned to me. I rose from our table near the front and walked up the steps. The spotlight found me. 300 faces stared. Phones rose like a wave. This read said, voice steady, is my daughter Charity Frost. 16 years ago, I didn't know she existed. 4 months ago, she found me. Tonight, I get to stand here and tell all of you how proud I am to finally call her mine. A collective gasp rippled through the room. At the head table, Lester stood so fast his chair scraped backward. The crystal wine glass in his hand tipped. Red Cabernet poured across the white tablecloth and dripped onto the carpet like blood. Someone in the back whispered loud enough for half the room to hear, "That's the branch president's niece. Or daughter." Wait. Reed kept talking. Charity spent her life being told she was a burden. She was denied basic things while money meant for her education paid for vacations and cars. But she never gave up. She fought. She found the truth. And now she's home. The whispers turned to murmurs. Phones were no longer subtle. People filmed openly. Lester's face cycled through every shade of red and white. He took one step toward the stage, then another like he might charge it. Vicky grabbed his sleeve and hissed something no one could hear. Reed wrapped an arm around my shoulders. "So thank you, Spokane, for giving me the chance to stand here with my daughter tonight. Let's make this the best auction yet." He handed me the mic for the ceremonial paddle raise. My hand didn't shake. By the time we stepped down, the video was already uploading. That night, the Spokesman Review homepage carried a single photo: Lester Frost frozen mid-stumble, wine spreading across the tablecloth, while Reed Lawson and I stood on stage under the spotlight. Headline in bold: billionaire shipping magnate claims daughter in dramatic reveal at bank charity gala. Local executive left reeling. The comments lit up before we even reached the car. The civil trial opened in the Spokane County Superior Court on a cold April morning. Courtroom 3 smelled of old wood and industrial cleaner. The gallery held maybe 20 spectators, a couple of reporters, a bank compliance officer, and a few curious neighbors who had seen the gala video. Lester sat at the defendant's table in a navy suit that hung looser than it had 4 months earlier. Vicky sat 2 rows behind him, clutching a tissue she never used. Knox was not there. School kept him away. Holly arrived with 4 banker's boxes on a metal cart. She wheeled them past the bar like she was delivering groceries. The bailiff raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Judge Harlan took the bench at 9 sharp. No jury. This was purely financial. Holly's opening was short and surgical. "Your Honor, the plaintiff will show that for 12 years the defendant, acting as trustee of a revocable living trust created for the benefit of Charity Frost, systematically misappropriated $212,000 for personal use. Every withdrawal violated Washington Fiduciary Law RCW 1198.078. We ask for full restitution, statutory interest at 8% per annum, and attorney fees." Lester's lawyer started talking about family expenses and reasonable discretion. The judge cut him off after 30 seconds. "Save it for evidence, counsel." Holly called me first. I took the stand in a simple gray blazer Reed had bought me. I swore in. The clerk handed me the microphone. She asked me to describe my childhood expenses. I listed them: secondhand clothes from Plato's Closet, no phone until I paid for it myself at 15, no school trips, no allowance. While I spoke, she projected receipts on the big screen, Lester's signature on a check for a flat-screen TV the same month he told me we couldn't afford new shoes. Then came the bank statements. 4 boxes became 400 pages projected one by one. A $5,000 withdrawal labeled orthodontic expenses. I never had braces. A $22,000 wire to a travel agency for a Hawaii trip. I stayed home with a neighbor. A $38,000 cashier's check to a jewelry store, the diamond earrings Vicky wore to the gala. Each page enlarged so the forged trustees' signatures filled the screen. Lester stared straight ahead, jaw clenched so tight the muscle jumped. Holly rested after 2 hours. The defense called no witnesses. Lester's attorney asked for a recess. The judge denied it. Closing was brutal. "Holly, The defendant stole from an orphan he pretended was his daughter. The evidence is undisputed. Award the full amount plus interest and fees. Defense: reasonable family expenses. Judge Harlan removed his glasses. I've seen enough. Judgment for the plaintiff: $212,000 principal, 8% annual interest from date of each wrongful withdrawal, and $48,000 in attorney fees and costs. Total due within 30 days. Case closed. The gavel fell like a gunshot. The bank fired Lester the following Monday. The official letter cited loss of public trust and violation of fiduciary ethics policy. He cleared his desk before lunch. 3 weeks later, the foreclosure notice appeared on the South Hill house. The bank that once employed him took it back. Vicky packed what she could into her SUV and moved into her mother's double-wide trailer 20 miles east of Airway Heights. Knox texted me once from his new flip phone. "Sis, I swear I didn't know any of this. I'm sorry." I read it, thumb hovering over reply, then deleted the thread and blocked the number. That same week, I stood in the courthouse again, this time for a simple name change hearing. 10 minutes. No opposition. The judge signed the order. Charity Frost ceased to exist on paper. Charity Lawson became official. Guardian Reed Lawson. I walked out into spring sunlight feeling lighter than I had since I was 4 years old. Another winter settled over the house on Lake Coeur d'Alene. I stood on the wide cedar balcony wrapped in one of Reed's old UW hoodies, watching the lake freeze solid under a thin blanket of fresh powder. 45 minutes east of Spokane, far enough that no one from my old life ever showed up unannounced. Reed appeared beside me with 2 mugs of cocoa. He handed me one without asking if I wanted it. He already knew. We drank in silence for a while. Steam curled between us and vanished into the cold. He started teaching me to drive that January. Not on roads too much ice for a beginner, but on the frozen lake itself. He marked a wide oval with orange cones and sat in the passenger seat of his old Suburban while I crept along at 15 miles an hour, laughing every time the back end fishtailed. "Easy on the wheel," he'd say. "Trust the surface." Some nights we stayed up late in the library he'd turned into my study space. Bookshelves floor to ceiling, a fireplace that actually worked. He told me stories about the summer he met my mom in Seattle, how she spilled coffee on his shoes at a Pike Place cafe and laughed instead of apologizing. How she loved jazz clubs and hated cilantro. How she could beat anyone at pool after 2 drinks. I listened, hungry for every detail, piecing together the woman I barely remembered. My phone stayed quiet most days. Vicky tried calling from an unknown number twice. I let it ring. Knox sent one more message from a friend's phone, a long apology, promises he'd pay me back somehow when he was older. I read it once and deleted the thread. Old classmates who suddenly wanted to check in got blocked the second the first heart emoji text came through. I didn't hate them. I just didn't owe them anything anymore. Spring brought the acceptance letter from the University of Washington. Full ride Foster School of Business scholarship, academic merit, plus the essay I wrote about fiduciary fraud and second chances. Reed read the letter over my shoulder, said nothing for a long time, then pulled me into the kind of hug that made words unnecessary. I still called him Reed. Not out of anger. Just because Dad felt too big, too earned all at once. He never pushed. When I slipped and said it once by accident, something about picking me up after orientation, he smiled so wide his eyes glistened, then pretended he hadn't noticed. I knew what home felt like now. Some nights I opened the lockbox I still kept on my desk. Mom's letter was soft from being read so many times. I traced her handwriting and understood something new every time. Family isn't the people who share your blood. It isn't even the people who raise you. Family is the person who chooses to stay when the truth comes out ugly, who shows up every single day without keeping score, who looks at the worst parts of your story and says, "That doesn't change how much you're worth to me." Reed chose that. Every morning. Every cocoa on the balcony. Every driving lesson on a frozen lake. The people who spent 12 years teaching me I was disposable. They lost the right to my time. The day they proved money mattered more than I did. I'm 18 now. My trust is finally fully mine. I'm heading to Seattle in the fall to study finance because I want to understand every rule they broke, every loophole they used, so no kid ever has to fight this hard again. And when people ask where I'm from, I don't mention South Hill anymore. I say I'm from the house on the lake, where someone finally taught me what the word home is supposed to mean. Blood doesn't get to write your ending. The people who stay do.